Bonjour, je m'appelle Nana Frema Dente. Hello, my name is Nana Frema Dente. You know me on social media as Frema Shows. Today I have a wonderful guest on my mix. I've been following for the past 1 year and finally I get hold of him. Before then, this show is sponsored by Congo Life Living Radio, your #1 African radio station. We're based in Congo Brazzaville and we have our main branch in USA, Chicago, Illinois. You love politics, I love politics, but you are yet to find out what politics mean. I have a wonderful man right here with me. I'm going to introduce myself to him and I want him to introduce himself to you. Hi, I'm Nana Frema Dente.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you. Your name is?
My name is Gustavo Envela. I'm from Equatorial Guinea.
Guinea. Wow. Ghana and Guinea. What do you think? Well, nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you as well.
It's not easy to get hold of you, but finally I have you. So today you have to answer all my questions.
I look forward to answering all of your questions. It's a pleasure to be here.
Fantastic. I know it's a very nice warm weather, but anyway, we were born to the warm weather, so we should be fine.
Yes.
All right. So I want to know more about you. You said you're from Guinea. I'm from Ghana. If somebody is watching us for the first time, how would you know where is Guinea? Where is Guinea located?
Well, first of all, Equatorial Guinea, formerly Spanish Guinea, we gained our independence from Spain on October 12th, 1968, when I was 9 months old. Equatorial Guinea is located near Cameroon and Gabon in West Africa, an oil-rich nation about the geographical size of the U.S. state of Maryland.
Okay.
I was born there, left there when I was about 15 months. My late father.
Wait a minute.
Yes, 15 months.
Wait a minute. You were born in Guinea?
I was born in Equatorial Guinea.
And you came to the U.S. on what age?
15 months, so a little bit more than a year.
So you were born there, but you didn't grow up there?
I didn't grow up there, well, because of it, as we'll find out more during the course of this interview. My father was a diplomat in the United Nations, and we ended up going to the States in mid-1969 after being appointed UN ambassador, and was in that capacity for a year and a half. And when he resigned, we'd hoped to come back to Equatorial Guinea, but because of the turbulent political situation under the first dictator, a gentleman by the name of Francisco Macias Nguema, we ended up being stationed in the United States, first in New York and eventually in Salem, Oregon, on the west coast of the United States.
Okay, so now you get me twisted.
Yes.
You were not born in Guinea.
I was born in
Guinea.
I was born in Bata Rio Muni, Equatorial Guinea, at Bata Hospital.
But you didn't grow up there.
I did not grow up, not by choice though, because we were like many politicals and diplomats at the time.
Okay.
We had to choose literally between life and death.
Oh wow! So you were not born in Guinea. You were born in Guinea. You didn't grow up there. What motivates you to become a politician? Why do you love politics so much?
Well, I think it's one of the things in life, I think, where there are certain cards that you're dealt. And my father, being Equatorial Guinea's actually second United Nations ambassador, the first one was executed after 3 months in power.
Okay.
So growing up in Oregon in the early 70s and 80s, and still a citizen of the country, not a U.S. citizen, I've always felt this need to want to be able to give back. We were always had at our dinner tables discussions about politics, about Africa, about the sense of responsibility we had in terms of being the voice at times for the voiceless. My father's also an ordained Presbyterian minister, and my mother's from Gabon.
Oh, okay.
So I have the Gabonese, Equatorial Guinea. So we have that whole central West Africa component pretty much cornered. But I think that athletics was really my bridge. And as you know, I was privileged enough to have competed in the 1984, 1988, 1992, and 1996 Summer Olympic Games as a sprinter for Equatorial Guinea. So rather than running around in circles, I'm now running, hopefully, for some office in the future in Equatorial Guinea.
Okay, now, why do you, I read a lot about you. I call you a motivational speaker when it comes to politics.
Sure.
You love politics, I love politics too.
Yes.
But I want to know more. Who inspired you? Is it your dad or something that you saw at childhood? What motivates you?
I think growing up in Oregon and always wanting to, I went back to Equatorial Guinea for the first time in 1985.
Okay.
And had a chance to meet the current president, Teodoro Obiang, who many have labeled a dictator, and I also affirmed that title. I think a desire to want to give back to my country.
Okay.
For those of us who have been part of the diaspora, whether in Cameroon, Gabon, Equatorial Guinea, the Congo, I think there's a certain kind of responsibility we have to be able to give back to our nations of birth.
Okay.
We're so grateful to have been educated here in the States. And rather than sometimes our intellectual capacity being placed here in the States,
Okay.
if we can go back and do good for our countries in any capacity, I think it's a good thing. That's just me speaking personally, but my motivation, not self-interest, it's for the interest of the people of Equatorial Guinea who've been denied their health, education, and socioeconomic prosperity for the last 50 years.
Okay. So most of you who are watching him for the first time, and you have to Google him, you have to read about him. I call him motivational speaker. I mean, his speech about politics. If you read about him and everything about him, you will love politics. You need to be polite and sincere when it comes to politics. That is why I love politics. But in Africa, we tend politics to be like enemies, and we are always fighting. And I said, what is you need to listen to this man? You need to read about this man. Now, at what age did you develop the love for the politics?
I think at a very young age. I would say 6 or 7 years old.
You were kidding?
No, I mean I began running at the age of 6, but I remember discussions at the dinner table about Jomo Kenyatta, Julius Nyerere, Nelson Mandela.
From who? Your dad?
From our family. Anytime we had people from Africa come out to the Pacific Northwest in the 70s and 80s, because of my father's standing as one of the liberators of Equatorial Guinea. He was a group of men who helped liberate us from Spain. I always really was drawn to people who are of influence, people who are of substance, people who had a sense of oughtness. And I think between my 3 older brothers, my young sister and my mother, we all had a real sense of duty. And I think that politics, for me, is an instrument for good. As you know, many of our leaders in our countries in Africa have misappropriated such a noble responsibility. But I think that that all of us who have an opportunity to go back and help, we should.
Okay, so what, as a politician, as somebody who is addicted to politics and love politics so much, what can we do? We always say it's not up to the government, it's up to individual. What is your point of view when it comes to what we can do to help Africa?
I think civic engagement. Whether you're part of the diaspora, whether you are someone who's in country, some of these countries, because of their oppression to the freedom of speech and freedom of assembly and freedom of press, we're not able to speak as liberally as we can here in the States and other parts. But the social media, of which you're an expert, is a great avenue. And I think for our generation of leaders need to challenge the anachronistic dictators of the 20th century. I think the days of multi-million-dollar mansions, yachts, art, all that, big cars, jewelry.
So you said she wear jewelry?
Well, yeah, of course. She wear jewelry. But I think that, as I say, nothing to excess. And so I think if those monies would be better spent investing in the health, education, and welfare of countries from North Africa to South Africa, East Africa to West Africa.
Okay. There is this, I mean, I don't know, Guinea is part of West Africa. Why is it tagged as one of the most poorest country in West Africa? Why?
I think
I've been there myself, and I see people, they have, they are not that poor. Why is it that?
Well, the country has about 1 million people. Once again, the geographic...
We are also million. Ghana is more than... We are 25 million population in Ghana. Okay, so what's your population?
Our population is 1 million. There's an island portion and a mainland portion.
Yeah.
About the state size of the U.S. state of Maryland. But unfortunately, oil, which was discovered in 1995, has been a blessing. I don't subscribe to the term called the resource curse. I call it a lack of good governance curse. And I think what happens is that since 1995, Equatorial Guinea, its band of kleptocrats, have misappropriated and hijacked the people's money for their own personal gain. And that's not solely limited to Equatorial Guinea.
African when is this going on?
Since 1995. So for the last 22 years, the government of Equatorial Guinea, led by Teodoro Obiang Basogo, who we understand is of failing health as of today, August 21st, 2017, we can only hope that the transitional government of Equatorial Guinea, elected through free, fair, and democratic processes, will be much more responsible. But it is time for African leaders to stop engaging and hijacking of political offices and allow a new generation of leaders who don't have all the answers, but have not mastered and perfected the art of dictatorship.
Okay. Let me go back to this. It's being criticized that your president, Obiemo, how do you say it?
Teodoro Obiang Nguema Bosogo.
Okay, good. I mean, the oil money he's been stealing and he's been using it for his own purpose. But I was there recently, and due to my research, I've seen that he's doing some investments in the country, the building, the agriculture, the education, the technology. Why? To me, if you compare him to Ghana, I think he's doing something for the country, but yet he's being criticized. Like, I think everybody says he's a thief or a criminal.
Yeah.
Why is it that? Because if the education and the agriculture and technology and everything is, I mean, home investments and everything.
Well, he's not only been called a kleptocrat, he's also been called someone who's a genocide, a human rights abuser.
Okay.
But with regard to the investments, I'm not sure if you're familiar, if your audience is familiar with a program called The Truman Show, a movie, where they build edifices, buildings, highways, streets, only to give the facade of progress.
Okay.
Many of the homes, mansions, paved streets are done in order to help support investments, foreign investment, but are designed to take care of the lives of the privileged, of the Obiang family and members of the government. And so if you were to, some parts of from Sipopo, which is or Oyala, even in order to enter the city, if you're not a resident, you have to have like a passbook. You have to show why you're doing business there. So for those of us who understand that the buildings aren't built for the common Equatorial Guinea, the homes aren't built there, the roads, whether in Bata Malabo, great, and we have to commend him for using the money, but there's no reason why his son, the vice president of Equatorial Guinea, should spend $100 million on 1 year on art, mansion, while people in Equatorial Guinea are languishing at less than $2 a day in the 21st century.
Well, we have the same thing in Ghana too. But Ghana has not been tagged as a poorest country in Ghana. I mean, in Africa. Everything you said is true. I've been there. I've witnessed it. But we also have the same thing in Ghana. So I think you think it's up to the government to help, or it's up to individuals to help?
I think individual responsibility, but also collective responsibility is an opportunity, civic engagement. And I think for those men and women and children who are brave enough to challenge the establishment without making sure to not compromise their own well-being, should do so. The complaint from many people is that, well, you're out here in the States complaining, but for the last 12 years, the government of Equatorial Guinea has cowardly refused to renew my passport. And so that is a statement in of itself. So I do the best that I can from here in the States, working with opposition voices, serious opposition voices, because we're not interested in future dictators. Those who are committed to the tenets of democracy, freedom, good governance, rule of law, civil society, from Europe to Africa to Asia, we say come back and give back, not only to Equatorial Guinea, but to the country of your birth.
Okay, so now that you've said that, I'm pleased with it. But what do you think the individuals are also doing for the community? Because looking at them, I think those who have money, and those who are poor, it's really, really poor. What are we doing to help individual? I think we are giving all the burdens to the government. Meanwhile, we have ministers, we have this, we have that. What are they also doing to help the community? And like you and I, what are we doing?
Well, I think for those of us who have strong ties to the country, once again, I've lived in the United States for 48 years out of my 50 years.
How many years?
48 out of my 50 years, and to this day,
okay.
I still am only citizen of the Republic of Equatorial Guinea. So I think for those of us who want to give, we can through social media platforms, through community chats, through opportunities to, whether it's emailing or communication, contacting local folks here in the United States. As you know, democracy, African democracy, is in many ways still in its infancy stage. You have countries that are only 50, 60, 70 years removed from independence, but that's not an excuse.
Yeah.
I think to whom much is given, much is required. And unfortunately, when you have dictators from Equatorial Guinea's Teodoro Obiang to Cameroon's Paul Biya to the Bongo family, Ali Ben Bongo, these individuals who should not even be given the right to run a general store, let alone a country, have made it very difficult for individuals who want to go back to the country and give back. We're not interested in the nonsense of mansions and palaces. We're here about trying to rebuild our countries street by street, village by village, city by city, until we can put back the countries that dictators in Africa have unfortunately left in shambles.
Oh wow. Okay. Now that you mentioned Obia's sons, I mean his son, he was recently condemned in France and about so and so forth, but he's not spending any jail time. Why? And is it because of the power or what?
Well, I've known Teodorino, the son, since his days in Los Angeles, California, Beverly Hills.
Are you guys friends?
We know each other. Let's just say
No, I
that's
just wanted to know
we're, I guess, friendly adversaries.
Okay.
But I remember when he had a company called TNO Entertainment in Beverly Hills, which was basically a fraud a front for him to launder money. So he was tried recently in France in absentia. And as you know, consciousness of guilt is something that a lot of criminals engage in. So if he was so innocent, if he felt that he had not engaged in money laundering, fraud, corruption, illegal wire transfers, then I think that he should have done the responsible thing as a leader and allowed the court to levy any sentence in his presence. However, we all know that when he committed his crimes, he was in the capacity as the Minister of Forestry and Agriculture. And what his father did, cleverly, is he thought that by appointing his son vice president, that he would be immune from prosecution. The French courts saw it another way. But Mr. Obeng, the son, Teodorino, who will not be the likely successor to the Republic of Equatorial Guinea, is out traveling about from Russia to North Korea and other countries, making sure to bypass France in his travels.
Okay, so why did he spend jail time? Why wasn't, if he's guilty, as you said, I mean, as we all know, why not jail time?
The French prosecutors were very aggressive, and also have to give compliments to Sherpa, Transparency International, and a lot of the other opposition
A big
leaders.
shout out to you.
Yeah, you guys are doing a great job. Congratulations, and keep putting pressures on kleptocrats.
Okay.
It came down to the French prosecutors wanting him to have serious jail time, to also be, they're saying maybe 2 to 3 years, fined, I believe, 30 million euros, as well as have all French properties seized. So there's been a rich history of Teodorino having properties seized in Malibu, California, the mansion, which I was a part of that endeavor in the late 90s, a $35 million mansion in the mid-90s. Remember, you're still talking about a country in 2017 that still earns less than $2 a day. So between South Africa, another place where he had mansions confiscated, it seems as if there's no one left in the inn, so to speak.
Wow. So rich live with rich, and poor remain poor.
Yeah, but poverty is a state of mind, and I think for those of us who are committed, none of us aspire. My late father passed away 12 years ago, and I know that money doesn't do anything for you at that point. And so for those of us who are in a position to do well, it's kind of a David and Goliath scenario. So I'm not the only opposition voice regarding Equatorial Guinea. There are many, and in other countries, Gabon, as well as in Cameroon. But I think if we were to become unified, and rather than allowing self-interest and ambitions to cloud a vision, I think like oppositional drones, we can take these dictators out one by one. But we can do so with dignity, grace, honor, and showing the world that Africans are ready for a new and improved generation of leadership.
Fantastic. Tell me about democracy in Guinea.
Well, Equatorial Guinea has been devoid of democracy since our independence on October 12, 1968. Francisco Macias Nguema was Equatorial Guinea.
You think they still have their independence? Because when I was there, I felt like, no, they are not.
Yeah, they've never enjoyed independence. They've had fraudulent elections. And don't take my word for it. Take the words of Human Rights Watch, Amnesty International, Transparency International, election monitors. They're all rigged elections. These dictators are so narcissistic that they have to win elections by 95%, 99%, to the point to where the international community looks upon it as being farcical. So, but we also must hold accountable American lobbyists and other foreign interests who at times enjoy keeping individuals who are ignorant in positions of authority because they can easily be manipulated. So for those of us who aren't consumed with money, but are consumed about holding accountable those who have committed genocide, human rights abuses, and have stolen the money of the people. Well, we're here, and we're here to stay.
Wow. It's so sad about, I mean, at this century, we still have people live like we don't have independence. And Guinea has been one of the, I would say it's sad to see people, even to see women suffering and everything. Is there anything out there for women, empowerment, or anything that we can do to empower women? Because I say everything that I saw there was women and children are suffering.
Sure.
What can we do to better our women, to for better Africa?
Well, like Michelle Obama, who had as her platform the empowerment of women and children, I would call upon Constancia Obiang, the First Lady of Equatorial Guinea.
Shout out to you.
To invest in the women and the children, the future of our country. Okay. You'll find that the First Lady has also engaged in some rather interesting financial schemes. But in the end, it's all about investing in the people. And for some reason, women, and I'll agree with you, have been left behind.
Yes.
But our generation of leaders realize the importance of women, queens, and their role in our society, in civil society and otherwise. And we know that this generation of leaders, that we cannot move forward towards progress without the presence of strong, independent women who are forward-thinking, and of which we and I embrace wholeheartedly.
Okay. It's fun. Tell me more about your education background, because somebody may be watching right now and say, who is he and where is he and where is he want to read all these things from? I want you to tell me, where did you school, where you stay, where have you been, and everything that's from your education. I want to know.
Well, I was raised in Salem, Oregon, so I went to elementary, junior high, and high school in Salem, Oregon.
Which is USA.
In the USA, on the western part of the United States of America, near California. Because of my track and field, I was blessed and fortunate enough to have a lot of incredible coaches, incredible teachers.
Wait, we'll go back there.
Yes.
Were you in track and field, or?
I was a sprinter, track and field, sprinter.
Wow.
Yeah, I started around at the age of 6 in my Winnie the Pooh slippers back in the day. And because of my running and the ability to have folks believe in me, both in the U.S. and Equatorial Guinea, I was awarded more than 300 full ride scholarships.
Wow.
And chose Stanford University, where I was able to go to school there for on a full ride scholarship. And I was able to earn a Bachelor of Arts degree in political science, a Bachelor of Arts degree in African and Afro-American studies. However, I also took the MCATs, the Medical College Admissions Test, but I found that my strengths lay elsewhere.
Okay.
But to this day, I'm so grateful the opportunity at Stanford University. And the many friends that I have to this day, among them Senator Cory Booker, a U.S. Senator here in the United States of America, who's from New Jersey. Great friendships have endured over these decades, and it's, even to use the word decades, I feel like I'm getting older, but young at heart.
Decade is a decade.
Yes, decades plural.
That's right.
But my education, I think, from graduating in 1990, I then went on to Los Angeles, California.
Okay.
And spent 17 years in California. So between beginning my endeavors to bring about change in Equatorial Guinea in 1991, I took trips back and forth to D.C. from Los Angeles. So it's important when you talk about opposition leaders, usually with the discovery of oil is a real bright line.
Okay.
Oil was discovered in the Republic of Equatorial Guinea in 1995.
That's right.
I began my anti-Obiang, anti-corruption, anti-money laundering in 1991.
So wait.
4 years before the discovery of oil.
Because 4 years before they discovered the oil.
Yes.
And yet, what has been done? And has the oil changed the community? Or because all that I read is, the government has taken the money, everything is going to the government, we are not using it for anything. So do you think the oil has changed or hasn't impacted in anything?
Yeah, the psychopathology of oil is funny because prior to oil being discovered in 1995, President Obiang and the government was highly dependent upon the International Monetary Fund, the World Bank, and as you know, many of these entities have so many restrictions. Once oil was discovered, President Obiang was free from those shackles, and I think in many ways probably saluted the World Bank and the IMF with his middle finger and said, he's got it from here. But unfortunately, what that created was a petro-euphoria hysteria. It's almost when you go from poverty to abundance overnight. the natural inclination is to buy all the superficial things rather than immediately, true leaders, immediately doing what you can to invest in infrastructure. Unfortunately, 22 years later, we're still at the same place with regard to the spending habits and criminal activity from 1995. But we're optimistic about a new Equatorial Guinea on the
horizon. I was about to ask you.
Very optimistic.
Okay. All right, fantastic. So the oil was discovered in 1995.
Yes.
When did we tag Equatorial Guinea as the poorest country in West Africa?
Well, I think that moniker came about prior to discovery of oil, and ExxonMobil. And by the way, I have no problems with multinational corporations doing business in Africa. It's a business. They're there to do their part, and that's why their standard line is they don't want to interfere with the internal affairs of the country. They give the country their part. Now, the contractual deals could be a little bit more fair, because from what I understand, the country right now, the oil companies take about 85% of the oil wealth, 50% given to the country. So I know that Nigeria is more 50-50, but I know that when these contracts were negotiated, and I believe in honoring the sanctity of contracts that were written in fair and mutually beneficial terms. But I think that the government...
Wait, you raised a point there.
Yes.
The country get 15%.
15%.
What does the rest of the 85% goes?
Goes to the oil companies. Their mentality, and once again...
Who owns the oil company? Who owns them?
Well, you have ExxonMobil, Marathon, Hess, Total, Chevron, Elf, Alcatel, a lot of different companies that come in. And I think what happened is like the wild, wild west here in the States, there was a scramble for oil. And unfortunately, the Equatorial Guinean government, like many African governments, had on their side ministers who weren't really in a position to negotiate contracts that some of these oil companies who have their Harvard-educated, Ivy League-educated, international law experts. So no criticism, because we're all dealing with the world of global politics, but more can be done, and I hope that the multinationals will play much more of a integral role with regard to good governance, because we all know the role that multinationals play, and we all can work on a more equitable playing field.
Okay, so you are an expert on when it comes to politics. I call you inspirational speaker. All right, what can it be done now that because the oil belongs to us? Why are we getting the 15%, but not at least Nigeria get 50%? It's 50-50. Why not us? Because Ghana has discovered oil. We are yet to find out how much do we get, how much. So I want to know what can be. Let's say Ghana has also. Ghana is making out 15% from the oil. What can it be done? What can we change to make it better? Because this oil company can help develop. Guinea is what, 100, how many population?
A million people.
A million. We are 25 million, like we are more than you guys, yet people are suffering. What can we do? Anything that we can do to change?
Well, what I've done over the years, and I've had a special relationship with ExxonMobil over the years, is try to hold them accountable more in employing Equatorial Guineans. The mentality of the oil companies is that they bring the research and development, the logistical equipment, the ships, the barges, the platforms, the drilling, the expertise, but they can do more by employing Equatorial Guineans and sharing that knowledge. I think, as you know, knowledge is power. That's right. And if you are shrouded in ignorance, sometimes it's self-imposed, but sometimes it's being imposed upon you. There seems to be sometimes a feeling that this is so difficult you couldn't understand, but I have great confidence in the intellectual capacity of Equatorial Guineans, and I know that the oil companies can do more and should do more in the 21st century. There's plenty of oil and plenty of money to go around for the oil companies, the government, but more importantly, the people of Equatorial Guinea and other African nations.
Wow, this is fantastic. Well, if you're watching us, we are recording live in the United States of America, and it was a blast meeting him right here, because I call him a motivational speaker when it comes to politics. We need to learn something from this gentleman right here when it comes to politics. Politics is not about fighting, it's about your opinion and my opinion for a better Africa. When we talk about democracy, what do you know about democracy? You love politics, I love politics. Give us something that we are missing, something that you have learned, because you're working Pentagon before. So tell us, what is white people or American or other countries doing it right that we Africans are not doing right?
Well, I think, and as I've been able to give advice to the highest levels of the U.S. government, beginning with the George H.W. administration to President Trump and all that comes with him. But I would encourage civic leaders, anywhere in the world, engage with your leaders, your congressmen, your politicians, back in your home state or here in the U.S. Do never succumb to complacency, because complacency equals, in my political death. And I have two daughters, ages 17 and 23, and I'm hoping that in some way that I'm leaving a legacy behind for those of us who want to be able to give more. But be confident, be humble, be grateful, know that we're resting on the shoulders of Africans who have come before us, and I proudly welcome the responsibility at some time passing the baton on to next generation leaders. It's not about money and enriching yourselves, it's about adding value to the lives of men and women and children, not only in Equatorial Guinea, but throughout all of Africa. We can do more, we should do more. Don't give up, be bold, and be brave.
Be brave, be brave, be brave. Yes, yes, yes. I know you love politics. I love politics. And I love listening to this gentleman. And it's a pleasure meeting him here. I have a blast.
Likewise. Thank you so much.
I wanted to say something to your viewers out there, because this is going viral. I want to mention your name again.
Okay. My name is Gustavo Envela, E-N-V as in Victor, E-L-A. For those of you who want to email me, you can email me directly at presidentenvela@yahoo.com. Once again, presidentenvela@yahoo.com. Once again, Africans, we know that we come from a nation or a continent full of tribes, just like the Democrats and Republicans here in the U.S. But we have much more in common than we have dissimilar. So don't allow yourself to be strangled by tribal loyalties. Think more about the loyalties that we have to our children, who in the end truly represent our future.
Yes, yes, yes. Africa. This is our motivational speaker. Make sure you look for him. Google him on YouTube, everywhere. Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and Google. Where else can we find you?
That's the best way. And we strongly encourage the Republic of Equatorial Guinea and other countries to begin to engage in free, fair, and transparent elections, allowing election monitors to come into these nations. But I encourage you to be involved civically. But Google, email me. I look forward to hearing from you. I usually respond fairly quickly. Thank you so much for Africa. Thank you so much for Equatorial Guinea. I'm Bolo Mareni. Muchas gracias. Thank you for your time. We love you, Africa. We love you, Africa.